This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? How do they do that? Well, Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards earn their keep and which are just heavy, shiny metal, and planning group trips that won't ruin your budget or your friendships. So travel smarter and spend less. That's the key with help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. Armchair-Explorer is a part of the Voyescape podcast network. Check out all of their shows from around the world at voyescape.com. Hey guys, welcome to Armchair Explorer and the first of our connection episodes. And it's going to be a really fun one. The idea with this format is to put out longer form conversations with really cool, interesting people about things that might not necessarily work for our signature documentary formats. Things like art and culture, philosophy even, all sorts of stuff. There's always going to be an exploration bent to it, but I wanted to do something that allowed us to go somewhere different than those big expeditions and immersive trips that we do and look for the ideas and the people and the details that might otherwise get missed. One of the great joys of exploring the world, and life in general, in fact, is the people you meet along that journey, especially the ones that surprise you and inspire you and maybe even have a really deep and profound impact on you too, though you might have only spent a day with them or a week or even just a coffee or a fleeting moment. So that's the idea here, to introduce you to some of those kind of people and hopefully forge a connection that will do something of that magic of meeting people on the road. And today we're speaking with Jenny Hunte from a company called The Adventurists. She helped set up this company actually with a guy called Tom Morgan about 20 years ago. Tom, and I quote this from their website, says he set up The Adventurists from his cupboard in his pants. And the idea was to reinstate a proper sense of adventure into the lives of the people that traveled with them, a sense of journeying into the unknown, of risk, a spirit of open-mindedness and not knowing what's around the corner. They're kind of the anti-tour operator. They set the stage for adventure, proper, crazy, mad adventure, extreme, sort of, but in a really playful Monty Python sort of way, I'd probably describe it. They do not take themselves too seriously, which I love. And in this day and age, with the technology we have in our pocket, there's a tendency to plan things out to the nth degree, isn't there? So aside from the fun, aside from the Monty Python elements, I think the spirit of The Adventurists as a counterpoint to that is a really important one and worth listening to. I think it's pretty inspiring, actually. So we're going to go into that, but we're going to do it through the lens of their first trip, the first trip that started it all. It's called the Mongol Rally, and it is nuts. So it's a really fun interview. We crack each other up throughout it, but it's also kind of deep in places too. Just the kind of thing I love, and I hope you do too. So enough of me. Let's get on with the show. Hey guys, welcome back to Armchair Explorer. Today we are in conversation with Jenny Hunte, who is one of the founders of The Adventurists, which is a company that I absolutely love, and I'm so excited to talk with Jenny today about the first ever adventure that you guys did. Yeah. But to set the scene a little bit, I want to read something from your website. You guys write amazing copy that like genuinely cracks me up when I read it, but also gets me really excited for like adventure and taking off. So I'm just going to read this out. Adventure is a word that has had its meaning stamped into the mud of indifference. It has been boil washed by marketing shits into meaning holidays without a beach. But adventure isn't a place or an activity. Adventure is not knowing what will happen to you tomorrow or in the next 10 minutes. Adventure is setting forth in a spirit of ignorance. It's getting lost, it's getting stuck, it's getting in trouble. It is the stage upon which chaos can be wrought. I love that. I love that so much. So let's start at the beginning then. Who are the Adventurers? Who are you guys?
So actually, I think that's a difficult question to answer. There's obviously like me and Tom and Dan and the guys that amazing team of people that work for us now. But there's also this huge community as well right now, right around the world, who are incredible and who I hope hold up the banner of adventurism. But it started with the Mongol Rally. And that happened before the Adventurists happened. So at the time,
right, okay.
the Mongol Rally was the Mongol Rally. We didn't think we had a bigger thing. We had 6 cars and an idea to get to Mongolia. And that was it. And Tom and Jules had tried before and failed. So 2001 was actually the unofficial first time they'd taken their little Fiat 126 and tried to get to Mongolia and failed totally. They got to Iran, couldn't go any further. And this was the first official reattempt to do it.
So it wasn't like the kind of launch of a business at that time. It was just a couple of mad friends deciding to drive a shit car to Mongolia.
Exactly that. It was we are determined to take these tiny cars to the furthest place that we think we can get on the map.
I love that so much. How on earth do you come up with something like that?
That's Tom. Tom's brain is incredible. And he comes up with all sorts of amazing ideas and adventures and plans. And then him and Jules actually went together and did it again. It was their second attempt. And I went with a mate of mine called John, who we'd lived in Russia with prior to the rally. And we managed, goodness, I don't even know how we managed. I can't even remember how we managed to get 4 other teams involved. I think we might have had a little website. I do remember running around local pubs where Tom lived and putting up our little A4 posters that we'd printed out. And a little box for our charity fundraising, which was for Sendercow at the time. Yeah, and somehow we got 4 other teams.
That's amazing.
And that was so exciting. It was so exciting at the time.
How drunk have you got to be in a pub to see an A4 poster of drive across to Mongolia and do it?
I think it said travelling for sissies. That was what we did. That was our entire campaign.
I love it.
Local pubs. And we got 6 teams. And that's sort of the birth of it, really. And it wasn't the Adventurists. It wasn't anything bigger. It was, we're going to make it to Mongolia. And I remember people saying, there's no way. These little cars that's not the point of these little cars. They won't make it all that way. And I remember thinking, well, actually, it was totally focused on the fact that we were going to try anyway. And the point was having I think my Fiesta, I had a Ford Fiesta. I think it was 1 litre or 999, something like that. CC.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I love the sort of requirement to drive in a bad car, just to make it harder to get to Mongolia, as if it wasn't hard enough. Yeah. But going back to that thing I read and that sort of spirit of what adventure means, what is that part of the company? What is that ethos and where does it come from?
I think it comes from those early days. And Mongolia was a relatively short bit of the journey for us. We went in at the north in Altanbulag. And so the distance from the border with Russia to Ulaanbaatar was short. We did it within a day. And I remember the feeling of, it was momentous for me. It's we've done it. We've driven for weeks across the planet, our planet. And now we're in Mongolia, which is where we set out from Shoreditch in the same little car. 4 of us got through and we're doing this thing. I remember everything, the light, the roads. I was obviously quite, vigilant at that point because I was so excited. But it also came with a sense of anticlimax. And I was reflecting on that today and thinking, why was I feeling a bit and that's nothing to do with Mongolia. Mongolia's pimp. It's amazing. I love it. But it was about the end of the journey and the end of the adventure. Realizing that's it. I'm not going to drive this little car through the most ridiculous places and get stuck in potholes and break down and have to make a head gasket out of an ice cream box anymore. We're done. We've come to the end of this adventure. And that has sort of come through in all of the adventures we do. It isn't about making it to the end. And it never has been. We didn't set out from Shoreditch going, we will definitely make it to Mongolia. We had literally no idea whether we would make it to Mongolia. Of course, if we had a big 4x4, whatever, you would. And people drive, quickly to Mongolia all the time, or did, through Russia. So that wasn't particularly new. But taking a car that purposefully probably couldn't make it, that was. And the fact that we got them there via all the adventures that we had on the way, which I think has become, the core of what then became the Adventurists. We don't know whether the 70 people that line up for the monkey run in Morocco, the start line to cross the Sahara on a tiny bike are going to make it or not. We don't know. We think they will because we've got faith that they're going to find a way. And that was always the thing. You're going to find a way out of getting stuck and lost, but hopefully you're going to get a bit stuck and a bit lost. And that's what the adventure is. And I think it comes from us in those early days going, right, we're going to go from Shoreditch to our ferry and see how that goes. And then we're going to get across the channel. And then we get to France, we're going to work out where we're going next. And it was like that. So when I got to the end, I was like, oh, I don't know that. Now what I have to do is get home, but it's not going to be in my car.
I imagine you got quite attached to your car.
Got so attached to my car. I love it when I see pictures. I'm like, oh, it's my little Starsky and Hutch Fiesta.
Oh, it's so great.
It's just a red secondhand Fiesta. I think John and I spent something like 226 quid on it because at the time you could get that, couldn't you? And it was just a little 4-seater Fiesta. And we just painted a big Starsky and Hutch like white tick on the side for our racing colours.
Did you like jump through the window? Guys like that, isn't that those guys that do that? They don't even use the doors. I think that's the accent. That's a little too risky. Yeah.
And we had a box of spares in the bag, but I've no idea to this day whether they were the right ones. I've no idea. Like I don't know much about mechanics at all, so I think I'm a pretty good driver, but I don't think if the car had broken down seriously that I'd have been able to do anything, and neither would John. And we just got, I think we got sponsored. I managed to get a local garage to basically give me a box of spares for a Ford Fiesta, and I bunged it in the boot. That was me done. I think the pillows took up more room than my
I love it. That was the sum total of your planning. Chuck a couple of spares in the back. No mechanical knowledge. That's the spirit of it. Yeah.
But I bloody loved that car, Aaron. I loved it. Like, and it got us there. It got us there. It was 10,000 miles or something that we drove of the planet in a little 1-litre Fiesta.
That's amazing. What did it feel like? So where are you at the start? Could you describe that? Like, where are you? I'm imagining the cars are lined up or something like that. What's it feel like to be at the start or something like that?
Yeah, I think lined up is probably sounds a bit more functional than I think it was at the time. They get lined up now, but at the time we basically managed to persuade a bar in Shoreditch called the T-Bar, who had a kind of big industrial warehouse-esque space, to let us drive the cars in there. And they were sort of parked around in the bar. And then we had just a little send-off. And I don't know how many people came. I don't think it was that many. I was looking at photographs of it the other day. But we were so proud because the Mongolian ambassador came to see us off. We've got photos of us with him. And that was so exciting. And it was extremely low-key, physically, but internally, such a momentous moment. For the rally, that was the start. And obviously in context now, where it became this thing for hundreds of people to have done and hopefully enjoyed and adventured through their world.
I have this picture of like, you guys all there and it being like, come on, let's go. And then like coming out the bar and just immediately getting stuck in traffic or something.
It's exactly like that. It's exactly that. So you go out and then you're like, I've got to catch my ferry now. That's it, the pedestrian nature of adventure, isn't it? Because actually what you're doing is trying to get yourself to Dover.
That's brilliant. And I should ask you as well, because you guys have this concept of the en route. Like a lot of people would imagine that you've mapped out exactly where you're going to go, but you hadn't. What is the en route?
We don't, well, because we knew we were trying to get to Mongolia and Ulaanbaatar is their capital, so we were trying to get there. But we didn't have a plan apart from that. So obviously we knew we had to book a ferry and we had to get to the European mainland. And then after that, we sort of took it as it came. I mean, we had to have certain visas. We knew we'd go through Russia. And I really liked that. I do that now. I try, even with the kids. You know where you might want to get to, but you don't have to know every detail. You don't. Because actually some of the beauty of an adventure, or even like arguably life, is not knowing every single thing and being okay with not knowing every single thing.
Absolutely. That's inspiring. I'm going to do more of that with my kids, actually. I just usually do that by accident, but I'm going to plan not to plan for the next one. Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
See what happens and introduce them to the idea of spontaneity and adventure. And I personally benefit from that hugely. I love it.
So you get on the ferry at night to Dover and then you arrive in France. Like what that first part through Europe, like what was the route you ended up taking? What were some of the bits that you remember from that?
I think we went quite north. So I remember going through Brussels and Germany, Poland, and it was a bit of a blur. Like we did Europe quickly. I think we were quite keen to get as far east as we could. And I think it's when we hit Ukraine that we kind of slowed down. And I remember going to this woman's house in Lviv and her inviting us all in to have tea, and she showed us all these amazing foods that she was pickling, like beetroots and things, and we ate with her and had tea with her. And I think that was the first point in Europe where we just sat and talked to someone. We didn't do the whole of Ukraine. We went back up north and crossed into Russia a bit further up in Latvia, and then you have the vastness of Russia. And again, it's that sense of scale. That's something else that you get, I think, that you wouldn't get from hopping in a plane. Or doing it another way, or even necessarily being on a coach where you're not the person confronting the distance that you have to go. But I definitely felt that in a tiny car by like week one, and how much everything changed in terms of how it felt, but yeah, also in terms of that scale of the landscape, the scale of the distances. You're not driving 60 miles to Dover anymore. You're driving 700 miles to the next
wow. That's
town.
Incredible.
So from Russia, we went down into Kazakhstan, and then we decided to go to Uzbekistan. That wasn't on the plan, but we decided to just go down there. And we managed to get a visa after about 2 days. So we went down into Uzbekistan and then into Kyrgyzstan, then back into Kazakhstan. So generally the journey sort of split into Europe and Russia, and then Central Asia, and then back into Russia, and then into Mongolia. That's what we ended up doing. And there's quite a shift there. That I felt was a bigger shift, I think. Partly the landscape changes. You know, I remember like the feeling in Russia of forests, like dark green, beautiful. And then you go, you know, Kazakhstan, I predominantly, I remember the deserts. And it's still, you know, again, vast, but very different landscape. And language starts to change. It doesn't, lots of people speak Russian in that area, but other languages begin to change and religion changes and culture. So you do start to feel more, I would sense more of a difference there.
I feel like that's a part of the world that people don't really know at all. You know, were there any moments like in Kazakhstan where, you know, sometimes you just get those like brief moments, maybe it's a sunrise or maybe it's just suddenly like, wow, look where I am. This is incredibly beautiful.
At the world. Yeah.
Did you have any moments like that?
Yeah, loads of them. There's those like epic moments of like, oh my goodness, like look at this vastness in front of me and look at my little car, my tininess in this. There's those moments. And there's also ridiculous moments of like, we're stuck in a really big pothole and we can't get the car out and things like that. Coming across really cool like service stations that wouldn't be at all what you'd imagine if you hadn't traveled there. They're not selling crisps or whatever, but you can go in and get some fried eggs and they might have spare petrol in jerry cans that you can buy a bit of, that kind of thing. And some of those were brilliant. And I remember getting to a really remote village and stopping there. And I think the people were genuinely confused as to why, as you would be, why on earth we'd turned up in our little cars in the middle of like 3 days from anywhere and interrupting their perfectly peaceful life before that point. And they were extremely kind to us, given how incredibly disorganized we were, and gave us some food and looked after us and really interested in our journey. And we couldn't, like in terms of language, we couldn't communicate at all. But I remember them just raiding the car as well, the kids, just like taking stuff. Probably lost most of my spares there, but I didn't know what to do with them anyway. So
that's amazing. What were some of the, like you mentioned, getting stuck in a pothole, and what were some of the most difficult situations that you came across?
Lots of times you get pulled over by the police, especially then, because it wasn't normal. Like they didn't know what we were doing, and probably rightly were just like, what on earth, why are you going? Like, no one ever drives here. What are you doing? And those are the times where I think I'd feel nervous. And quite often I would be the person that would go in with my very bad Russian or whatever, and that worked in Kazakhstan and Russia, to try and explain what we were doing. And often they'd be like, why? What is the point? What is the point? I remember one particular time that was scary was driving along in Russia, and a police car came and drove parallel to us on the road. And then the kind of nose of a barrel of a gun came through the window, the passenger window, and was like pointing at John's head. And I remember thinking, okay, I think this is, please, can you pull over? So we did that. And then we went through the light, and I was genuinely frightened. I'm like, goodness me, like this person is cross and we're in the middle of nowhere and they've got a gun. And so we did our best explaining what on earth we were doing. And that whole interaction ended with us with a map on the bonnet and him using the gun to point out local sites that we should go and see and his favourite lake. And he was just like, brilliant, you're here. I hope you really enjoy the area. And it's that kind of interaction that I think you're only going to get if you adventure through the world like this. Like to go from like, oh dear, I'm frightened, there's a gun being pointed at us through our car window, to that same gun being used to tell us where we should go and have a nice bathe or whatever. That is an experience you're not going to get in any other context.
Quick shout out for the Adventurous guys. If you're curious listening to this and thinking, hell yeah, I want to drive a crap car to Mongolia, you can. They still run this trip and you can take part. You can also do something called the rickshaw run in India, which is, you guessed it, driving a rickshaw across India. They also do a shorter version of this, which they're launching next year. I'm trying to get on that one, so maybe I'll see you there. They do something called the monkey run as well, which is basically driving a clown-sized motorbike across preposterous, amazing countries like Peru and America, and lots of other utterly amazing pieces of chaos and fun. So if you want to check it out, head to theadventurists.com to find out more. If nothing else, the website is genuinely hilarious and worth checking out. Theadventurists.com. I love it. That's so funny. It's a great metaphor, that as well, isn't it? For, just in general, like traveling and people.
Yeah, and people. And he's a bird and he's a human being, and actually loved the idea in the end and was really excited about it. But I don't think we ever met, we actually genuinely, we never met real jeopardy. I think we got into a very slow, or one of the teams got into a very slow chase with some bandits somewhere in Kazakhstan.
Like you're half remembering this, like
and it was very slow. I remember none of the cars could go very fast. Their car couldn't go very fast, and our car couldn't go very fast either. So things like that happened along the way. But that year, that 2004, we were immensely lucky. I guess it is luck that nothing bad really happened. We were able to get ourselves out of any situation. We were able to find food. We were able to communicate with people. But actually, what you think is that hospitality is amazing. It should never be taken advantage of. I'm not saying go out into the world and just like expect other people to feed you or whatever at all. And that's not what we're encouraging either. And I hope we were very respectful in terms of the way that we interacted with people, but extremely grateful at the times that we needed it, that help was offered, especially if you had a breakdown or something and you just needed someone to help weld something or cut something out or to have a cup of tea because you're having a down day. There was a girl I remember in that village as well. I didn't learn her name, but I just remember thinking, gosh, we were a similar age, because I was like 20, I don't remember, 23, 24. We couldn't talk to each other, but we could sort of perceive how incredibly different our lives were. And I don't, obviously it's not like I've kept in touch. I don't even remember where that was, but I feel very grateful for the hospitality they showed us.
You remember that, and I'm sure she remembers that too, it's like that moment of
exactly connection. When some weird painted car turned up in the village.
That's great. Where did you stay, by the way? I just want to get a couple of sort of practical bits. So you sleeping in the car? We slept in the car a lot, and we stayed in some hotels. Some of them were finished, some of them weren't. Often we'd get to a place, and if we really felt like we needed a bed for the night, just try and ask people where a place to sleep was. You'd end up in all sorts of different venues as a result. There was one huge, I remember being in Kazakhstan, somewhere, this huge venue. I don't think it was really a hotel that was open, but they let us stay there. We let us book a room or whatever. And it was just
a vast hall. And I think it was probably going to be used for weddings or something, but we slept, off the side of this big hall. But you're so tired often by this point that you're really grateful for any lilo on the floor is going to do.
Yeah. How many hours are you driving a day, by the way? Like, it sounds like you're on a mission, but...
That varied. Yeah. That varied. And it depended sort of, again, because we weren't planning, because we had this kind of en route idea. We weren't thinking, by this point we'll hit that point. What we were doing was going, next we need to get to this place.
Yep.
Right, let's do that.
Right, yeah.
We didn't know how long that would take or what would hit us on the way. So we weren't, you'd get to a site, you'd been driving for 5 hours or whatever and get to a site, it would say it's 700 kilometers to that place still. And you'd be like, it's going to be a long day.
Did Starsky and Hutch have any music? Were you
yeah. We had to have music. You have to have a playlist. I can't even remember what it was in my Fiesta. I probably had a little tape cassette or CD player or something. I definitely didn't have any like aux-in cables or anything like that. I love that about the rally. I love that if you sat in different people's cars, that they would be in a world created by their music.
Yeah.
They could feasibly be experiencing the same place completely differently because of the music that they've got on.
Yeah.
I really like that. And that's something I wanted to say about the journey, actually, in the en route, and something you asked about in terms of ethos. And part of what I was thinking is the way people choose that journey, that adventure is so important. Like that's their individual choice. Whether you turn left or right there, that's going to bring a potentially completely different experience of that bit of the world. And that's why I think it's important. We're not going to say whether you turn left or right, and we're not going to itinerize it for you. Not going to put you in a hotel, but you're going to find one that you found and you experienced and you made that decision about which way to go.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, I think.
So he's a friend of mine, but he wrote this book called Where's Wallace? Because what he did was he decided to go to 3 places he'd never heard of, like these random kind of countries that no one's really heard of, and knowing nothing about them with no research or no plans or anything at all, quite similar in a way. But one of his take-homes was when you don't know anything about a place, everything's a surprise and everything's amazing. Like you haven't seen the picture of like this great mountain or whatever. Yeah. It just suddenly appears, and maybe there's something in that surprise as well that really makes it.
Yeah. And I got it at a smaller scale than mountains, but just even like, wow, cool, look at this tea shop.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
I love that.
Or, this road isn't at all as I expected. Look at the size of that pothole. Like they were they're smaller things.
Yeah.
Because there is the epic like landscape or whatever, but there's also the tiny things, which is, I think I got a lot out of those things.
That's
those
great.
Discoveries on an adventure.
I love
or a
that.
petrol station where you're like, whoa, look, they also sell, like, this person selling socks. I've still got my socks that I bought from here.
Absolutely brilliant. So we talked at the beginning a bit about the end. What was that like, that final couple of days or whatever?
It was that feeling. What is this feeling? Where the anticipation of finishing is really exciting. And at the same time, you don't want it to be over. I don't know what that feeling is. I don't have a word for that. But I think that's how I felt. And I remember just looking at things a bit more carefully in Altai. So that's interesting as well, isn't it? Whereas before I was kind of quite forward and quite like, we've got, what's the next place we're going to? When I got nearly to the end, I was like, hang on, I'm not going to be doing this for very much longer. So what actually am I in? What am I looking at? And so I think I remember Altai in a kind of different way. There's a different tone for me those last couple of days. So that we're in Russia at that point, Russian Altai, and we're going through really beautiful, one of the most beautiful places I think I've been, like just hills and steppe, and the light was amazing. And there was a kind of a slowness of my thoughts about it, I think, or a slowing down of it. Like this is we're coming to the end of something. Take it in, like we've made it, but also look at where you are.
Did the journey, like, so many years on now, like, did the journey change you? I feel like that kind of journey must sort of fundamentally change you in some ways.
I guess it mustn't it? Because you're so confronted with all these different experiences, foods, people, languages, landscapes, cultures that I hadn't traveled like that before. So it's definitely added to who I am. I don't know whether it's fundamentally changed me. I think that I hold on in a world where it's sometimes difficult to do that now, right? To the idea that as a human being on the planet, you can go out. We were able to go out into the world and do that. And that's what I hope people get from it, that like, wow, our planet is massive and amazing and diverse. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to see this huge slice of it on this journey. I think that, yeah, that's the thing that probably shifted in me, definitely. And I think it's what I hope people are doing now when they come on adventures, or what you would have on the rickshaw run. You know, maybe it's a smaller version of it. Some people have a week to take. I think we have to now more than ever remind ourselves of who we are and what we're all doing here. And adventure has a part to play in that. And I mean real adventure, where we actually like shake the hand of someone we wouldn't otherwise see. And just remember, we all have our own things going on and our own stories. So yeah, I hope that's what people get out of our adventures for themselves. I hope they can take that home and go, gosh, that's a really lucky thing to have done, and for it to uplift them.
Well, it's a beautiful place. I could keep talking about this forever. I think you talk so beautifully about it, and it's really inspiring. But I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation for now. So thank you, Jenny. That was amazing to have you on. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been great to meet you.
Yeah, no worries. Well, come on more adventures, Aaron. That's what I was going to say.
Well,
got to get you on a monkey bike now.
You say that. I don't know about a motorbike, but a rickshaw, perhaps. I've been chatting with Penny about it. So
awesome.
The South Indian rickshaw.
Do it.
I don't know.
Yeah, in a rickshaw. Yeah.
Purveyors of chaos, fighting to make the world less boring. Absolutely love it. And I love the deeper ideas behind it too. So thank you, Jenny. And did you know that was her first ever interview? Crazy, isn't it? She seems like a seasoned old pro to me. So you got to get behind that mic again, Jenny. And if you're interested in finding out more about all these kind of crazy things they do, go to theadventurist.com. Highly recommend just checking it out. So that's about all we have time for today. Keep dreaming. Keep being insane in the way you dream too, because the more we look for wonder in the world, the more the wonder of the world becomes a part of who we are. Dare to be truly alive. This episode was produced by Armchair Productions. My name's Aaron Miller. I write and present the show. Charles Tyree does the audio editing and sound design, and Jason Patton is our lead producer. Our theme music is by the artist Sweet Chap. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.
Quick question. Do you want travel tips from people who have actually been there?
Our show is co-hosted by Tim Johnson, an award-winning travel journalist who's been to more than 145 countries around the world. And I'm David Brody, the other co-host who's been travel podcasting for 20 years while traveling to 50-plus countries around the world.
In about 10 or 20 minutes per show, we break down a destination with the kind of insight you usually only get from long guidebooks or hours of research.
So if you want expert advice, zero fluff, and travel inspiration that you can actually use, search for Travel in 10 wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can also find us at boyescape.com.
Hi, I'm Pauline Fromer, host of the Fromer's Travel Podcast. We post new episodes weekly, detailing the kinds of money-saving tips and cultural insights that will make your trips richer without making you significantly poorer. We do so by interviewing real travel experts like TV host Samantha Brown, Fromer's authors from around the globe, and such public figures as Free Solo's Alex Honnold. It's a fun travel party. I hope you can join us.